If you've ever heard of the Inhuman or seen the shape-shifting Skrulls in the MCU, then you probably have an idea of how awesome the Kree Skrull War was. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're talking about the Kree Skrull War, one of my favorite Avengers stories of all time. If you love this video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe because there's a lot more where this came from. And let's get started. The Kree Skrull War first appeared in print in Avengers issues 89 through 97. The series was written primarily by Roy Thomas with art by Neil Adams, Sal Buscema, and John Buscema. Now this is considered one of Marvel AS' earliest and most influential epic crossover-style stories. And it's definitely a turning point in the history of the company. So the premise is pretty straightforward, although the execution is anything but. Earth becomes the battleground in a galactic conflict between two powerful alien races, the Kree Empire and the Skrull Empire. Both empires see Earth as strategically vital and try to manipulate it for their war efforts. The Avengers are forced into the middle of this conflict with loyalties tested and cosmic-level threats emerging. Let me tell you, there's a lot going on here, but that's just scratching the surface. So what do you need to know before jumping into this series? Well, let's start with the basics. First off, there's the Kree, a militaristic, technologically advanced race with a strong sense of honor and tradition. Their homeworld is called Hala, and some of their notable members include Captain Marvel, Yon-Rogg, and the Supreme Intelligence. Then there's the Skrulls, a shape-shifting, conquer-happy race bent on domination. Their homeworld is called Skrullos, and they don't really have any notable members. I mean, they have Emperor Doric and maybe Super Skrull, but let's be honest, it's really all about the MCU Skrulls. Then we got the Avengers, Marvel's premier superhero team, consisting of Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Panther, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, and Vision. Oh yeah, and did I mention that Captain Marvel is also a Kree warrior who defected to protect Earth? Yeah, things are gonna get complicated. Now, the war itself is said to have been raging for 400 years when the series begins, but we won't see much of that. Instead, we will watch the conflict escalate to a fever pitch as both sides lay siege to our planet. So now let's talk plot. As I mentioned earlier, the war has been raging for centuries by the time issue 89 rolls around, but we won't see much of that. Instead, we will watch the conflict escalate to a fever pitch as both sides lay siege to our planet. With the help of some undercover Skrulls, the Kree attack several major cities in Avengers Mansion. The team splits up. As the government begins to heavily scrutinize the Avengers, the heroes are forced to flee into hiding, which leaves Earth undefended and humanity at risk. The remaining Avengers are captured and taken before the Supreme Intelligence, who explains the true scope of the war and why the Kree are fighting so desperately to win. Turns out the Kree Empire is dying, and its last hope lies in conquering worlds, which means they can't lose this war. That's where Captain Marvel comes in. He was once a fierce Kree warrior, but he deserted his post after falling in love with a human scientist named Susan. Now he lives on Earth under the alias Walter Lawson, working as a pilot. However, when the Kree invade, he's forced to reveal his true identity and rejoin the fight. Captain Marvel switches teams, joining the Avengers and helping them escape from the Kree. As the two sides gear up for a final confrontation, Captain Marvel helps broker a truce and leads a delegation of heroes and government officials to negotiate peace. However, the talks break down when the Skrulls attack again, forcing the Avengers into another battle. In the aftermath, the team scattered and demoralized, but eventually regroup. They travel to the Kree homeworld of Hala to rescue their allies and attempt to end the war once and for all. While there, they learn that the Kree Empire is indeed dying, and that the Supreme Intelligence has been trying to hide this fact from its people. To prevent a total collapse, Captain Marvel sacrifices himself to help restart the Free Zone, which gives his people hope for a better future. Meanwhile, on Earth, the surviving Avengers are faced with one final challenge: stopping the Supreme Intelligence from destroying the planet. They refuse, however, and instead use the opportunity to learn more about the war and find ways to help. They soon discover that the Skrulls are planning to invade Earth in force and prepare accordingly. As the two armies clash over the planet, the Avengers fight to hold things together until they can find a way to stop the fighting. In the end, they succeed, and the war ends with neither side victorious. Okay, so that was a lot. But trust me, it's worth reading because there's so much great stuff that happens along the way. We get to see some really cool stuff, like the Avengers fighting alongside the Hulk, who's temporarily allied with the Kree. We also get to see the Vision and Scarlet Witch's relationship develop in a really meaningful way. Like I mentioned earlier, Vision is an android who's struggling to understand humanity, and Wanda, who's a powerful witch, helps him to do that. We also get to see the power of the Kree and Skrull armies in full force, as they lay siege to Earth and battle each other across the galaxy. There's also a lot of cool world building that happens during this story, like we get to learn more about the history of the Kree and Skrulls and their conflict. We also get to see the impact that the war has had on other species and civilizations. But the best part of this story is definitely the character development. We get to see the Avengers grow as individuals and as a team, and we get to see the relationships between characters develop in really interesting ways. We also get to see some great villains in this story, like Emperor Dorrit, who is the leader of the Skrulls, and the Supreme Intelligence, who is the leader of the Kree. These guys are both really powerful and really smart, and they make for formidable opponents for the Avengers. Now, this is a long story, so there's obviously a lot more that happens than I'm able to fit into this video. But if you want to see what I'm talking about, I highly recommend checking out the series. It's a classic for a reason, and it's definitely a must-read for any fan of the Avengers with cosmic-level stories. Plus, you can't go wrong with Neil Adams' art. But what makes the Kree-Skrull War so important? Why should you care about it? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, this is the first time that the Avengers are faced with a truly epic challenge. They're not just fighting a villain of the week or a mad god who wants to destroy the universe. They're fighting in a war that has been raging for centuries and that threatens to consume the entire galaxy. This is a story about the fate of the cosmos, and it's one that the Avengers are uniquely positioned to influence. Second, this story helped to establish the Marvel Universe as a truly cosmic place. Before this story, the Marvel Universe was largely confined to the Earth. Sure, there were a few alien races that had made appearances, but they were few and far between. This story changed all of that by showcasing the vastness of the galaxy and the many different civilizations that exist within it. The creators of this story expanded the scope of the Marvel Universe and set the stage for even greater adventures to come. And third, this story helped to cement the Avengers as Marvel's premier superhero team. Up until this point, the Avengers had been a pretty good seller, but they were far from the cash cows that they would become in the 80s. This story changed all of that. The Avengers were thrust into the spotlight, and their adventures were followed by millions of readers. This story helped to solidify their status as Marvel's flagship team, and set the stage for decades of success to come. Overall, the Kree-Skrull War is a landmark story in the history of Marvel Comics. It's a story that helped to define the modern age of comics, and that continues to influence creators and readers alike. If you're a fan of the Avengers, if you're a fan of cosmic-level adventures, or if you just want to read one of the greatest stories ever told, then I highly recommend checking out the series. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. What did you think? Did I miss something obvious? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. Until next time, goodbye.